in sales during 2019. Okay. We expect a downturn in sales. You would go with lower inventory levels, which they have. So it's C. Exhibit 10 still does not exist, but note number 2 does, indicates that inventories valued on the LIFO basis totaled 94,578 and 50,037 million at 31st of December 17 and 18 respectively. Based on this, the LIFO reserve should most likely. Well, what they're saying here is that inventory levels, you would assume, have dropped. The inventory levels, the units, because look, it was 94, it's down to 50. So your sales of units are greater than your purchases or production of units, which is prime territory for the LIFO reserve to decrease, for a LIFO liquidation. So based on that information, if you blinkered yourself and did not look at the rest of the accounts, you would expect it to decrease. As it turns out, it didn't. You can see from the rest of the information, had I reproduced it here, that it actually increased. They're saying you would expect from just observing that for it to decrease. Why you wouldn't look at the rest of the accounts and observe that it hadn't, I don't know. But they just want you to know that in a normal situation, an analyst would look at a drop in inventory levels and assume a LIFO liquidation. We have here a question on the left and its answer on the right. See what we make of it. In Exhibit 10, which does not exist, the industry and business risk excerpt says that increased competition may lead to lower unit sales and excess production capacity and excess inventory. Not good. This may result in a further downward price pressure. NRV is falling. The downward price pressure could lead to inventory that is valued, so its cost is above its NRV. Any write-downs of inventory are least likely, so we're looking for least, to have a significant effect on the inventory valued using weighted average cost. It's always in the middle, so the answer is going to be B or C, FIFO or LIFO. The answer they go for is B. They're saying FIFO justifying as if prices have been decreasing, write-downs under FIFO are least likely to have a significant effect because the inventory is valued at closer to the new, lower prices. I'm just not sure that I know that from the information that they've given me, because the cost, what we bought this inventory in for, depends on what's happening to raw material prices. So it tells you what would happen typically here if raw material prices were rising. Yes, prices are falling here, but doesn't necessarily tell me that the raw material prices are rising. We talked about price rises elsewhere in this case, so I'm not sure. But that's the justification they give, B, because they're claiming from the information we've got that inventory is valued closer to those new low prices. During periods of rising inventory unit costs, normal situation of rising costs, company using FIFO rather than LIFO, so FIFO, first in, first out. COGS is the old. If prices are rising, COGS is the cheap. So COGS is lower, profit is higher. On the balance sheet, your inventory is new. It's the more expensive. So my inventory, my assets are higher. So FIFO rather than LIFO will report a lower current ratio, or no. Current assets are higher. Lower inventory turnover. Inventory turnover is COGS over average inventory. COGS, we said, is lower. Average inventory is going to be higher. Lower numerator, high denominator. That will be lower. Gross margin. Nope. Profit's higher. It's not C. Compared with a company that uses the FIFO method, during a period of rising unit inventory costs or rising costs, a company using LIFO will appear more. If we're using LIFO, last in, first out, COGS is taking the new items, rising prices, they're expensive, so COGS is going to be higher. Profit is going to be lower on the balance sheet. Inventory is the old, cheap stuff. So inventory is lower. So a company using LIFO will appear more liquid? Nope. Think liquidity, you'd want current assets, current liabilities. We've got lower current assets, so it's not going to be more liquid or appear more liquid. More efficient. Your efficiency comes from your activity ratios. Here, COGS over average inventory turnover. COGS is higher, inventory is lower. So your numerator is higher, your asset base, your inventory on the bottom is lower. That's going to go up. You're going to look more efficient with a higher inventory turnover. Profitable? Nope. Profit is falling. In a period of declining inventory unit costs, I'd write that down on my piece of paper, just a note, because it's unusual in a question. And constant or increasing inventory quantities, our usual assumption. Which inventory method is most likely to result in a higher debt to equity ratio? Debt to equity. We're not going to touch debt with either of these. Debt's irrelevant. Highest weighted averages are in the middle, so it's LIFO or FIFO, A or B. LIFO, you take the newest items to COGS. Falling prices, that means the cheapest. So profits will be higher. If profits are higher, equity's higher. That's all you need to know. If equity's higher, this ratio is going to be lower. So it's not LIFO. It must be FIFO. FIFO is the opposite. So FIFO, first in, first out, it's the oldest. Falling cost, that's the most expensive. COGS for FIFO higher, profit lower, equity lower. If we're not touching debt and equity is lower in the denominator, that ratio is higher.